Is that? And we're live. Welcome to episode 40-ish, 50-ish of Office Hours, everybody. Thanks for joining us live. Thanks for joining us wherever you are today to learn about all things fractional, all things small business, and all things new normal. So with us today is Jenny Erickson. Hello, Jenny.
Hello.
Jenny was not too long ago in the Minneapolis market. Now I believe you're in Phoenix, correct?
I am. Quite the move.
You've decided to move someplace warmer. No one is ever going to fault you for that. And so today we're gonna continue our dialogue on all things small business. And Jenny has a particular trade and business in that, and she's going to share her thoughts on it. But Jenny, if we could just take a minute, tell us who you are, what you do, how much you love Phoenix.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the heat. So I'm totally digging it.
Good.
Yeah. So I have my story is kind of a funny one, but I think most of the people that are listening today, I did my corporate grind. So 20 years, roughly, give or take, depending on how you count.
20?
Give or take. I did 15 to 20. And I always say it depends on your definition in corporate.
Yeah. Each year is an MBA though. Each year is an MBA. So it's 20 MBAs.
There you go.
Right.
So I definitely did my time. And my moment, I think everybody has that moment where they know they're ready for something different. And my moment happened when it was really, I realized a couple of things. One was the realization that a lot of the people that I was working with weren't there because they wanted to be there. They were there because they had to be there.
Okay.
And I was like, what kind of world would we have if everybody woke up in the morning and did what they wanted to do on their terms?
Wow,
right?
That was your cathartic moment.
That was my moment.
Yeah.
And then I also realized that I was spending more time convincing people to do things than actually doing things. And I'm a getting things done kind of gal. So
what was your role? Would be your last role? Was it HR? Was it
I've
ops?
done everything. That's kind of what makes me weird, quirky, and whatever I am. I was in technology. I ran a program management office for a while. I did transformations. My specialty was basically the big sticky wickets that no one wanted to touch. I was process owner for a while. I did consulting. I did organizational design for a while. So a couple of years I spent doing, how do you reorg entire departments? So that would be my HR exposure. So I've kind of done a little bit of everything. I was trained as a coach. So name it, I probably did it. Supply chain for 3 years. I did sourcing. So
Geez, all the stuff some people don't want to do or don't have the knowledge to do or are afraid to take on, right?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So there you were, and you had been doing that for a couple of decades, and then you realize not everybody wants to be here.
Yeah. And I had this moment where I was at a meeting, and I remember I was asked, it was a large leadership team meeting offsite. And I was asked to do something that I didn't believe was the right thing to do because it was politically the right thing to do. Does that make sense? And I had one of those moments.
Yes. Many of our listeners are going to be empathetic to that for sure.
Yeah. So I walked out of there and I said, you know what? It's time to help people that can wake up in the morning and make a decision that they need to go. And guess who does that? Small business, micro business owners, you and me, John, all these people listening. Like it's your butt on the line. It's your paycheck on the line. It's all in your hands. And so I just said, I'm going to work with only the smallest businesses out there. So I only work with 1 million and less than 10 employees, 86% of businesses, like you and I and everyone else out there.
99% of our economy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Numbers are pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But it's like the everyday superheroes, right?
So exactly. And they prop up half of our GDP and it matters. So boy, so our membership and then the people who tune into Voyager, like everybody has that story. Oh, yeah. Either they said, enough is enough, or there's something more, or I've hit a ceiling, or there's a problem in the market.
Yeah.
So you had the moment while you were at someplace. Then somehow you transition. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So the transition story is always the fun one. So some of us need a kick in the pants. Some of us need to create the kick in the pants. And some of us just
That's for sure. Yeah.
I needed to create the kick in the pants. I tell people I had to manufacture a reason to leave.
Isn't that something?
so that I wouldn't go back into the safe space of perceived stability that we all kind of, well, I need a paycheck. I'm the breadwinner. I've got my 2 kids. I got to put them through high school, all the things that we do.
Yeah.
So I basically called up someone and I said, I need a short-term gig that will give me a reason to leave, but will only, it's bookended. And when it's done, I got to figure it out. I got no income. I got no job. I'm going to have to figure it out. And so,
but it got you there. Yeah. Right. Isn't that what they used to call there was that John F. Kennedy story. I don't know if you ever heard that.
No, I haven't.
It's similar and use this because it's that your story sounds like it is. Apparently when he was a lad, probably out in Nantucket or whatever they were doing out there in the Massachusetts area, and they were playing baseball and the ball went over a fence and there was a dog on the other side of this fence and nobody wanted to go get it, go get the baseball. And John F. Kennedy, either somebody took off his hat and threw it over the fence, or he took off somebody else's hat and threw it over the fence and said, well, the hat, you got to go get it now. Your hat's over there. You can't go home without your hat. You're going to get in trouble. Yeah, the decisions is the hat goes over the fence. My friend Jim Cousins told me that story years ago, and it still sticks with me. So you had your hat over the fence moment. It was an in-between thing.
I did. And I'm a huge believer in kind of manufacturing the situation that allows us to do what we know we need to do, but for whatever reason aren't doing. So I'm a huge believer in using that to our advantage instead of our disadvantage.
Yeah, that draw, that illusion of safety, or that fear, right? Fear plays into it.
Yeah, and there's legitimate reasons for it. But there's also very real ways to counter it, which I had done the homework, which is making sure, can I afford to live for a certain period of time if it takes me a while to get this thing off the ground? Like really thinking through, what is the bottom side? How long am I willing to go? What does my cash in the bank need to be before I start to get nervous and look at alternate sources of income? What would my alternate source of income be? So I had thought through all of that. So it was there. I just needed that,
And now fast forward a little over a year now, right?
3
years.
Right before COVID. I started my business right before COVID. Fall of that year.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that's a similar story. So now fast forward. So you're, act thoughtful.
Yeah.
And so now you're practicing, you're independent, you've got a business, you've got a market. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So Act Thoughtful, I started it with it goes back to what I said in the beginning. I wanted more people to do this thing that we do, John, that we love and go into business for themselves. So the platform is more people to go in business, stay in business, and create a sustainable impact for themselves and for the world. I knew that was what I wanted to do. The question was, how was I going to do it? Like using my variety of backgrounds. I'm the jack of all trades. Like
Swiss Army knife, right?
Yeah, exactly. So how do I take that and then how do I scale it? Because I knew I did not want to be the one who delivered the business for the rest of my life. Like I knew I wanted to build something that would outlast me. We get choices when we start a business. Do we want to be the solopreneur? Do we want to kind of go into a scaled business model? And I knew I wanted to go more into that scaled model. And so I basically launched a business that focuses on helping micro business owners get from point A to point B, usually when their business is running ahead of them. So they're either growing so fast they can't keep up, stuff's falling through the cracks, they don't know what to delegate, they don't know how to get work off their plate, they've never had to do that before, or they've basically capped out and can't grow for the same reason, because they're trying to do it all themselves. And so I help people through that first hump. And we do that through creating an action plan and a roadmap. And then we actually help them build the processes and implement the systems, hire the people to get it off their plate and onto someone else's. So we're kind of the architect designer people that help you get your operations into somebody else's hands and off of yours and get your special knowledge out of your head and on paper.
That's a big deal. So you like those startups that are on their way to be something larger? What is the market? Like, talk about the market you serve and where they're headed. Yeah.
So there's our most common is usually going to be either the solopreneur that's basically hit their cap because they need somebody else to take some of the work off their plate and they don't know where to start, how to give work direction. I have people say, I don't even know how to hand my email off to somebody. What would I tell them? How do they manage my schedule? I don't know. Bookkeeping, all of this stuff. They don't know how to give direction to someone. So our most common customers will be the solopreneurs trying to create more space to do more of the work they love and less of the other work and increase their income potential. The other audience is going to be people that have one or two team members and they are truly trying to create a business that can run more functionally without them so they can reduce their time and increase their income. So they don't want to be working the 60-hour weeks anymore. They want to be working the 30-hour weeks, and they've got to figure out how to get there. And they don't know how to delegate is really what it comes down to.
Yeah. And that's so hard.
Yep, it is.
Delegation is so hard. So talk about what are you running into? How do you help people overcome it? What are what are the themes? What's going on in your practice?
Controlling is probably the number one thing. We started this baby, right?
Yep.
Our businesses are our babies. We started them, we built them, they were all for us. And we have a certain way we like things done. We have a certain quality level. We have certain budgets, and you can't hire people who care quite as much as you do and have the same skills as you do. So you got to figure out how to take the work and make it more repeatable. And a lot of us, it's just in here. We just know it natively and instinctively. So it's how to release control in a safe way. So one piece at a time where there's low risk. So you can build the trusting relationship. You can get really clear on what good looks like, and you can slowly release the pieces. So I'll give an example. When I released my finances, it started with, all right, I just want you to take care of categorizing transactions and doing some of the monthly reconciliation. And then it moved up to, I want you to start analyzing my financials every month and telling me where I'm performing. Then I want you to start maintaining my forecast. Now I have someone who, I have a CFO, and they tell me, hey, when Jenny, you want to spend this much money, here's what it's going to do to your profit margin. I recommend you doing it or not doing it. Final calls in my court, right? But how do you grow that slowly so that you're not releasing all of the control too quickly and you still have a pulse on your business? That's probably the number one hurdle I see at this growth stage.
Do you, so as you do that, I know people suffer with that greatly. They're trying to get their arms around it. And we've got Lori joining us here, so we'll get her in. But as people are trying to grow from smaller to big, is what you're doing a lot of strategy and planning around that? Is it more operational things? Hi, Lori. Good to have you here. So she's good. It's a different link today. Thank you for jumping in. So, but we'll just jump in. So talk a little bit, Jenny, of how you go from a person of one with an idea and how you help them. Okay, now it's actually not eating up all my time and the business doesn't own me. How do you get them there?
Yeah. So the first thing is, somebody always has a reason we're talking, right? They have some reason that they've come and they're like, I'm feeling the pain here. So the first is, where is that pain, right? Is it that, they'll say, maybe I don't have, I'm super busy, I don't have enough hours in the day, or, I'm not making enough money, or I want more revenue. That's a common one. People say, I want more revenue. And I say, so what is that revenue going to get you? Like, I want to get to the kids walking home from school and you want to be answering the bus. You want to be able to take 2 weeks off every year. Like, I want it specific. I want to know why you want to make the change at a very guttural level and what's important to you, because that drives the plan for scaling. If you basically want to be home for your kids and you want to take Fridays off and you want to travel a month out of the year, you can do that as a solopreneur. We just have to change your pricing model. Like you said, a little bit of your go-to-market, a little bit of your pricing model, how you staff work, maybe how you get support behind the scenes. We can do that all without making you a scaled, business owner. But let's say you want to be able to leave the business a year at a time to go pursue an endeavor, and you want it to still run, and you want that brand to live on past you. Well, now we're talking more than a solopreneur. We have to build a product, or we have to build a team that can repeat what you do even when you're not there. Totally different set of game plans that I would give you. So what we do is we come in and do the strategy or the roadmap first, and then we go back in and do the operations. Does that make sense? So we start with the big picture plan and then move into all the projects you need to do to get from point A to point B.
It's interesting. It does. It totally makes sense. And particularly with the market that you like to work. Last week, before I came down with COVID, literally the day before.
How are you feeling, by the way?
Oh, terrible. Honest to God. It just, I'll survive today, and then I'm going to take a bunch of naps. But it's COVID. We're going to take a little COVID break. Don't get it, people. Wash your hands, do the mask. It's just miserable. But I've taken the 5 days of Paxlovid. Yes, exactly.
There you
Lori.
go.
Yeah,
I like it, Lori. Smart lady.
I've taken the 5 days of Paxlovid, and I'm, the latent stuff is what's bugging me now. The first 5 days were just terrible, but now I'm just tired, just really tired. But anyway, but I'm certainly good enough for today's show. So there's
I'm
that.
impressed.
Yeah, right. So, but that little detour probably had me forget what I was going to ask.
Sorry, I interrupted. You were saying just before you got COVID.
Just before I got COVID, I was at the Exit Planning Institute here in the Twin Cities. They had a good meeting on how to de-risk a business, and which is important, right? Like, when you think about exit planning and you think of, because what you're going to have is you're going to have a bunch of financial people. And they're going to be looking at the business and breaking it down, like how's your org chart, and but I think that there's and they're great. EPI is a great organization. They can really help, but the market you serve is sort of just before that.
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with, like, wait a minute, I can't work on my org chart. I have to build an organization.
Yes.
I can't. I don't have enough business credit yet to talk about it in terms of an asset. Inventory might be 6 or 8 months away. So those things that towards exit, they're not built yet.
Yeah.
But I think there's an absence of, so what do you do though, right? Like every business that's going to exit was at the stage you help them in at some point.
So at the very beginning, when we first talk to people, I always talk about, unless they've just started the business and they're in the super early stages and they have kind of no major milestones in life in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe I'll delay the conversation. But most cases, it's a blunt discussion. So what does retirement look like? I've asked 40-year-olds, what does retirement look like for you? What is the chapter before retirement? Like, what do you want? How do you want to get out? What do you want next? I think you have to. I was just talking to a business, a couple of years ago, we started working together, and they were in a services business, and we had the conversation about what happens when you retire. And they said, well, we want to retire in 5 or 10 years, and we don't want the business to live past us. That brand is really important, but we want money. So we said, all right, your curriculum that you're designing, let's stand that up as a separate brand, design the curriculum, sell the curriculum to other providers. And that way you can have a stream of income or a saleable offering when you exit without necessarily having to have your services brand stay alive. It definitely affects where you invest your time now. Knowing where you're going affects where you invest your time now. 100%.
Totally. Yeah. That's the one thing I often coach people, even in our world, the world of fractional professionals. Go grab the EOS VTO, the middle of the book. Do I have to read the whole book and take the whole program? No. Grab that, because everybody who's pursuing fractional, we all have 20 or 30 years behind us. We're not gonna, we can handle the discipline part, okay, but you have to put the pin on that distant moment.
Yep.
And you have to map and it's in the absence of another tool or having you to help me with it. It's not the end all be all, but it's a hell of a good start.
It is. And just putting it to paper, like you said, it's half the battle. And then knowing it will change, but you're going to know now when it changes, so you can then change your direction. It's not I'm moving with the wind. It's, I understand where I'm going, and it's changed for a very specific reason. So I'm going to change my path very specifically to make that new path happen.
Yeah. Well, it changes all the time. Right. So helping them get there. Awesome. Cadence is key. How do you support them along the way? How does that go in your business?
So, and I want to stop quick, because you had a really good point about the org chart as well. So one of the things I recommend for really super small, even solopreneurs, is actually to create a functional org chart. They have one kind of an EOS, the accountability chart. I've used that one. I actually have another one I prefer. But really understand what are all the different processes that you need in order to run your business, and where do you not need to be doing things? Who can you be adding where? And how do you start to build an ownership structure, as in I'm accountable for delivering processes, before you have enough people for a hierarchical structure. So right around that, like 3 to 5 employee mark, start putting in and saying, okay, I got 3 people. here's all the things that we do. Who's going to own what cluster of work so that they can start to have accountability for it before you have the hierarchical reporting structure, because you're not big enough, right? Until you got 10 employees, you don't need managers. It doesn't make sense, right?
So it's interesting if you, that's a good point, is it's a little bit of putting the cart before the horse. Don't start with the org chart. Start with the activity clusters.
Yes, exactly. Oh, you have good words, Sean. I like your words. Yes.
So let's stay in there for a minute, because I think that just blew a lot of brains out of the water there. Is don't start with the org chart, start with the activity cluster. Okay, so Jenny Erickson, take us through how you guide people through activity clusters.
Yeah, so we have a standard set of clusters that we believe every company has to some degree or another.
Sure.
And then we have a standard set of 19 business processes that we believe every company has to one degree or another.
Okay.
And so they're already organized into clusters. So what we do is we go through the list first and say what's not on here that needs to get added, what needs to be removed because it's just not relevant, and what new clusters need to be added specific to your industry. So I'll give a very real example. I had somebody who has a property management company. So we had to add maintenance, like home, maintenance for the homes. That's a whole process in and of itself, how to do maintenance requests and all of that in a whole area and a whole cluster. We would not have that on a standard, right? So it's really figuring out what are all those clusters? How does the list get tailored to your company? That list then actually goes into a roadmap. We have a list of all of the processes, who's going to own it? How does the owner sign off? What does the owner sign off on within that process?
Okay.
And then what systems are being used today? And then what is working and not about it? And then we rank them. Where's your biggest pain points based on where you're spending too much time, where it could be made the most predictable, all of that. We rank them top to bottom, and we basically create a roadmap, and we say one of these at a time, you're going to do it. So this month we're going to tackle accounts receivable and invoicing because you're not collecting efficiently. That's a common problem we see happen. Got it. Invoicing, for whatever reason, is out, sometimes seems to be the last thing on people's to-do list. Tom, I see a smile over there.
Yeah, invoicing is it's a lot of people who start a business, they don't start to do the invoicing.
No, they don't. I always joke that all the things I love to do are the things that no one else loves to do. They didn't start their business to run the business. They started it to do what they love. And I love running businesses. So you can give me any business and I love running it. Right. Yeah.
I love that. So, well, I'm going to stay with this idea for a second because I think it's really, really important. I see a lot of businesses, and I'm not knocking org charts, and I'm definitely not knocking EOS, but I think there's some tools we start with. What I have seen, and I invite others to jump in here as well, since we're halfway through the show already, for gosh sakes, is what I have seen is people will stop before they start. And here's what I mean by that. Is they'll look at, I want to grow. So maybe they've done the discipline of, there's the point in the distance. Let's say it's let's say it's a 30% increase and it's 5 million in sales. Let's just say that's it. So there's the point in the distance. And here's the org chart we need to fill in order for us to accomplish that. And then they stop before they start, because they'll say, well, that's $100,000 staff. We can't do it. So we're going to stop. Yep. And we're going to be frustrated. And we're not really all the time. And because they write it all into a role. Yep. And in the absence of a role, as now in your concept here is like, don't write into a role, write it into an activity cluster and assign and live it yourself. Yeah. But it just seems like such a way to sort of free up that thinking. Jenny, I see so many businesses like, if I can't fill the role, I can't grow. I call it the chicken and egg for that exact reason. It's, I don't have enough money to hire, so I can free up my time so I can sell more. Yeah. So it's like they get into the cycle of the chicken. Which one comes first, the chicken or the egg? And so I always tell people it's a ladder. You're climbing a ladder. You pull one hand up and then you pull your foot up, and you're doing a little bit of hiring something out and a little bit of sales and a little bit of hiring something out and a little bit of sales. But you do it like this. You don't take really massive risks and cross your fingers and hope that the person works out. Well, it happens all the time. People do that. They'll say, you know what, screw it. I have the hole in the org chart. Fine. We're going to spend 200 grand. We're going to fill it. We're going to spend a bunch of money. We're going to go to the bank and get some money so we can do that. And oftentimes they're not any better than they were before. No. Yeah. So, it doesn't always work out. You got to be really, really, if you're going to hire, you got to know exactly what you want. You have to be super fussy. In your first 10 hires,
I want you to be so fussy. Like you don't bring on anyone that's not an absolutely 100% perfect fit for you, because there's too much at stake. We're not like big companies where we can absorb to have someone who doesn't fit, not, continue to work with us. It doesn't work for us that way. We don't have the money sitting around. So.
Right. Well, these activity clusters is a really brilliant idea. And I know I'm going to take that to some of my customers that I'm still a practicing fractional CMO myself.
Oh, I love that.
It's not just Voyager and office hours. I still, as I say, I practice what I preach. So I think it's a really, really good idea. So,
awesome.
So, and I want to unpack it a little bit more, but, Lori, Tim, Tom, who are on the show, I'm going to unmute you. If you have questions, you can certainly pop in, just raise your hand. So I know to call on you, just like in class when we were kids. But we're gonna keep talking. What we're talking about today for the listeners is we're talking about how to grow when you're smaller. I think for the most part, Jenny, that's really what we're kind of dialed in here is growth is when you're a micro business, it's different. And the tools are different. And I've often complained about this, by the way. We're going to get off on a little John rant here for a second.
I like John rants.
Yeah. A lot of times people, when they're going to go start something fresh, they'll borrow. I think you should take from all that knowledge you've gained, but boy, those tools don't fit. You might want to go start a business. Don't bring Salesforce into a 10-person company. Yeah. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't bring a typical org chart structure into it. Those tools that work for the 10, 20, 30 million and up, they don't apply here. They don't live here. Tim will tell you, don't go and, apologize to all my legal friends, but don't go hire a $50,000 a year lawyer. You have to be more efficient in how you do it. But not everybody gets that. And I think, for the next 10 years, as all of this influx of small emerging businesses continues to grow, they're going to need access to this because it doesn't what worked pre-pandemic and for big doesn't work in this. And Tim can probably give you the data on this. I think last year we had 3 times as many small businesses start than in 1 year window than we've ever had before in America. A 3x yield. Think about that. Can you imagine if there was 3 times as many cars on the road in 1 year, 3 times as many, you name it, right? 3 times as many football teams, 3 times as many. A 3x is a massive number when you think about it. It's crazy. So, well, we'll continue talking about this, Jenny. So what else are you running into? What are the themes helping the micro businesses? What are you running? What are you seeing? What are you seeing from the Jenny desk?
Right now, I'm seeing people are tired. It's been a couple of years. It's been a grind, right? They went through and did a lot of, I had to shift for COVID. I either had a really hard time during COVID because my industry was really impacted, or I had a great time. Top blew off during COVID. Was it slower for you, Lori? Is that what the sleepy means, or?
I'm acknowledging you because I just love the fact, Jenny, that you had zero hesitation. Like you exactly knew what he was asking. That was very illuminating.
Thank you.
People are tired. People are tired.
Yeah, they are. And I think the key now is people are shifting to how can I be smarter with my time? Really start to choose my clients, start to choose my work, start to be intentional about what it looks like for the next 5 years. How do I want to be present now? My life and my work are more integrated. So I'm seeing a huge trend, I think, and just people I've been talking to about integrating work and life. Like it's not about like these fixed boundaries and this artificial idea that I'm a worker when I'm at work and I'm a mom and a friend and a hiker when I'm at home or whatever it is. It's you're all of those things all at the same time. So how do we show up? And COVID actually helped that because everybody was on Zoom seeing each other's dogs through the bad days, going through the ups and downs together. And so we kind of dropped some of those walls that kept us from having those very real dialogues. So you combine the exhaustion with that, we are at a prime place of redefining work.
Yeah.
Completely redefining work around our own terms. And that's the trend.
I wrote about that this week in the moment of energy I had to write an article. We're not going back to the way it was. If we were, that as hard as we tried, right? The comparison I wrote is let's go back to the way it was before. Let's take work back to 50, 60 hours and all at the office. And let's just go back there. There's a push for that. And it's quite honestly, it's happening at businesses that aren't really listening to their people very well. But there is a push for that. But I compared it to trying to start an outboard with a fouled spark plug. It's not taking. We're not getting catch on that. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is we've all faced our own mortality. We had 2 years of a lot of sadness and death, and it's like, oh fuck, this isn't worth it. Work isn't that important where I have to sacrifice time with family and my own physical health. Good God. There's so many drivers that are saying, don't go back, go forward. Participate though in what that forward looks like. I think that's why people are exhausted, is we're breaking new ground, and that's kind of hard. That takes a little extra energy. They're basically unmarked, unpaved trails, and it's kind of tiring to pave those. But you got to stay with it because you can't go back.
Yeah, go for it, Tom.
Just an observation, a former colleague of mine who retired about 8 years ago, and he lives in a real nice retirement community in Florida. And he said this past year, they've seen a major influx of 40-somethings with kids moving into their retirement community. And to your point, John, the reason is that they said, well, this is where we want to be eventually, so why not do it now? So they're kind of speeding up, instead of waiting another, 10, 15 years to move into that type of a community, they're doing it now instead of waiting.
They're moving into a retired community.
Well,
retirement.
I probably shouldn't use the room retirement community, but it's it's more of like a golf community, and most people who live there are retirees. I
see.
probably misspoke, but it's not a retirement home.
It's not assisted living, but it's informally understood and can be observed. These are retirees, and
thank you.
This is where they hang. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're seeing younger people move in there because that's the lifestyle that they aspire to. So they're not waiting. They're not waiting till they're empty nesters to live that lifestyle.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think people, Tom, are going to retire. I'm kind of I'm in the middle generation here. So I started work at 16. I went full time into the workforce. So I'm kind of halfway in the middle. I'm a little younger than your average 20 years under her belt gal. So I got kids and everything. So I'm right in the middle, and I totally feel you. I do not believe I will ever retire. I believe that I need to live a life where I'm happy every day and can take breaks when I need to restore, and can change my career several different times and reinvent myself rather than retiring. Like that's my whole future path. It looks completely different.
Oh my God.
So,
yeah.
I agree with you.
I also ran into somebody recently that has a business, and he's marketing himself to a new term I hadn't heard: digital nomads.
Oh,
So
yeah.
That's been around. Yep.
He's got a setup in Costa Rica. He's got a setup in Spain, and it's where people can go, and it's kind of like a concierge service, but you can go and it's at a kind of a resort type of area. But maybe you live there 6 months out of the year and then you go somewhere else. But for people, for fractionals who can work remotely, they're taking advantage of that and going down to Costa Rica and elsewhere.
Dude, let's talk about Bali for a minute. Bali is it Bali or Bali?
It's Bali.
Bali. They have a whole campaign right now saying, come live here, buy land, buy an apartment, live in this gorgeous place. We want digital nomads. They are literally marketing to people like us on the call and our listeners like, listen, you're not tethered to Minneapolis or Cincinnati or New York or San Francisco the whole year. So why live in that frozen misery? I think a lot of people would say about the Twin Cities, but it really, this is the go forward, right? These are the emerging trends and these are the emerging behaviors and sort of the emerging economies I mean, I know people that for the last few years, they've acted on that.
Mhm.
They have an office in Florida. They work out of there. They come here for a little bit. Yeah. Jenny, you're in Phoenix.
I moved to Phoenix from
You
Minneapolis.
moved to Phoenix. Yeah. And so that's the picture of that's what forward looks like. A little easier for those of us who are independent pros, a little harder if you've got a little distribution business or a retail thing. You know, it's a different deal altogether. I'm going to pause for a minute to let everybody know who's listening. I've got Jenny's LinkedIn and her website in the chat. You can go to that. You can also find it on Voyager U, our LinkedIn page. So a little bit of just a moment for, letting people know if they need to find Jenny after this. She's a real human being. There's little magic links where you can go find her and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you can pinch her. She exists. You're not AI yet. You're not AI yet. So
Not yet, someday.
So the trend you're seeing on the whole startup, entrepreneur, small business going to big, you're seeing a lot of tired. Are you seeing that for independent professionals and little 1 and 2 and 3 person startups on their way to 20 people?
Yep,
Okay.
it is. It just looks a little different about the path forward for them. For some of them, it's really saying, do I really want to scale up, or do I want to create, a smaller, more niche business where I serve a smaller number of people? For some people, it's really saying, okay, how much income do I really need? For some people, it's actually saying, okay, I need to scale up more because I need to get stuff off my plate and onto other people's, and I want to, not have to be tied. I have one client who wanted to travel 3 months out of the year. So it was really important to her that her business was completely self-functioning and still to pay her salary. So, that's what we focused on, and that's what she did. But really, like, figuring out what does your life need to look like? Because your life doesn't look like anyone else's, Everybody's life is unique with all these different parameters. And so build the life you want, and then let's figure out, how do we architect a business to get there? And then what work does that mean from you? Because it's not easy to get there. I will never pretend that getting to a scaled lifestyle business is an easy journey. It's not. So
it's sort of I hear people talk about that when they come in to the Voyager experience, and they're like, I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I don't know how to go independent, and I don't know what that looks like. And of course, we live to educate and serve and all of that. But then at the same time, they're like, but I ain't going back to that other thing.
Yeah.
I don't know this, but I know that I don't fit in the corporate box anymore. Maybe they got kicked out from it. Maybe they felt like I hit a ceiling. There's nothing more there for me. I think when you talk about people being tired, I feel like people are getting really tired in the corporate world. They're worn out by it. Like, I'm tired. It works so hard. And, maybe it's the drama of war and that sort of stuff. But I think that exhaustion, I think it's universal.
I have another factor to offer that might not be true for everyone, of course, but might be true for some people. And full disclosure, I'm inspired by, I work part-time at a diversity, equity, and inclusion firm. And I think the last couple of years, a lot of white people, their world, their psyche has just been disrupted, because if we weren't prior really comprehending what a different lived experience it is if you were a person of color versus a white person, now this is known. And so that's something else people are bringing into the workplace, and they're just trying to grapple and figure out, like, I thought I always was a fair, equitable person, but now there's brand new conversations. What is equity in the workplace? What does it look like? And yes, hybrid, remote, I mean, those are all pieces of this as well. But just transparency and more companies wanting to be transparent with salary. So it's fair, equitable across genders. I mean, I feel like that's also part of the transformation, which is producing stress, which is producing confusion, exhaustion. You might think you have it figured out. And then if you're me and you get invited to a summer networking party with a bunch of women, people just start saying things that are like, what kind of world is this? So politics, that's all part of it, I think.
Yeah, it is part of it. Oh,
for
Lori.
A lot of professionals. That's
the DEI thing is important, and someone who has her arms on this really, really well, a woman named Nancy Corsa. and she's got a group called the Black Business Enterprises, and just great energy around Black business enterprise and startups and early stage and how that happens. Lori, to the point you make, we have looked at DEI through the lens of an old model in many ways. How does DEI apply to the bigs? How does DEI live in a corporate environment? We have yet to look at it really, really well and how we approach it. How do we look at it in startup, in fractional, in early stage? What does it look like? Guess what? Completely different. Not at all the same. Not the same dynamics. None of it's the same. And I'm glad you brought that up, Lori, because I think we have an opportunity to get it right. I think as fractional grows and small grows and micro business grows, we don't have to follow. We can get this right. We can understand other people's experiences. We don't have to look at it as Nancy will say, she's like, I'm not looking for anybody to donate. I'm looking for people. I want to be heard. I want to be heard. I want to help you succeed. I want to be part of your success and vice versa. And I want you to understand my lived experience and I want to understand yours. So it's a much more, it's not a program. You know what I mean? It's a cultural thing. So boy, that was like a 3-minute soapbox right there.
Well,
But I have to give Jenny the floor.
No, I was just gonna say, I love what you guys are saying, because actually that's when people are hiring, those are trends, Lori, what you said, that really focus on. So number one, salary transparency. I'm sorry, but don't make the candidate say what they think they're worth. Tell them what the position pays. That's
easy.
Like, I push that with my clients. I'm like, that's what we do. I have different bands of positions. They pay the same. If you want the next raise, you get the next promotion. Like, that's just how we work, right? And when it redoes it because of inflation, guess what? All you in that position are getting that, because it's for inflation. If the market needs to shift for that role, then the market needs to shift for that role. So really doing that, and then having bonuses that are more directly related to consistent performance measures that I can have across everyone in that role. So that yes, there is an upside, there is an at-risk component of your compensation, but guess what? It's something that you can have control over directly. You can create that outcome, and in its sense, what we want for the company. The other thing is, I am having a huge pool of talent come apply to work for me that don't want full-time work. So I do anywhere from 20 to 40 hours. You can be full-time. I start as low as 10 hours, but I need to know that you're willing to go to 20, because that's about what allows us to have the right coverage, if that makes sense, and have the right amount of time to KT. But beyond that, I have several employees that their cap is 20. They don't work over 20, and that's what they want because they needed that flexibility for their lifestyle. They got a lot of things going on. So they were looking for work that was truly flexible, where they set their own hours and tell me I can only take meetings between these 2 hours when my kids are in bed for a nap. Totally opens up doors for who I get to work with, what they're incented by, what they want, what's important to them. And so I've been really lucky to tap into a whole different talent pool. Well, it's the same thing. We as small business owners, if we hire, have the opportunity to create these unique experiences, but we have to ask what people want. And we have to be comfortable asking them what's important to them based on their lived experience, which is different than ours. That's the hard part, is getting past some of that. We've been taught all this stuff in corporate about how to do HR. And I love what you said, John. It's about understanding a person and saying, okay, how do we make this role work for you and for me?
Right. And that, given where we are in the marketplace, 2 jobs for every worker, whatever it's worker favoring.
Yeah, definitely.
At the moment. And it's created some oxygen for like, hey, you're going to listen to me now.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the way it should be.
It should be.
And I don't think it's idealistic. It's I'm going to respect you. You're going to respect me. Together, we're going to do some good things, and we're all going to make a little bit of money, and everybody's going to be happy.
Oh, I love that.
It's not so hard.
No,
That's not so hard. I think a lot of people will tell you that the last 40 years of too much focus on shareholder value and less focus on worker value has caused kind of the problem we have with this. It's going to the shareholder. It's shareholder value. That's where our attention is. That's where we're going to make our decisions. You could be capitalist and think more about worker value than shareholder value. There's no dilemma there.
Do you, John, have you read the book Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey?
I think it's on my stack.
It is fantastic. And he gets into that. He goes, true capitalism is actually that it serves everybody in the chain, all the way from the employees to the clients, to the competition, to the environment, to that he kind of lists out all these different, plus the shareholders, plus the owner, because they have to make a living off of it. And he talks about how every person in that needs to be better off for having had that company. That is conscious capitalism.
That is, and I think one of my, I'm not going to say heroes, but one of my favorite characters in the world is Professor Scott Galloway out of NYE, New York School of Business, the Stern School. And he calls it capitalism only works when it's on a top of a bed of empathy.
Oh.
Which I think makes sense. And I don't often get responded to, and didn't get responded to on this. He's too big for little old me. But I said, I think you're wrong. We've driven empathy out of the capitalist discussion. I love it. I think idealistically, capitalism on a bed of empathy. But if you're looking for evidence of empathy in our marketplace over the last 30 years, it's going to be hard to find. It'll be very, very hard to find. Conscious capitalism, on the other hand, there's more examples of that. Because it's like, to be altruistic, it's not the right approach, right? You have to look at it and go, there's an ecosystem here. And does anybody here follow Dan Price? Gravity Payments, great CEO. He's a total, he lives conscious capitalism. Right now, does Bezos practice that? Does Virgin, we're not there yet as a capitalist society where I think we have to move into that way. We're not living in an empathetic capitalistic way yet, but okay, that was a little bit of a soapbox too, but we can and we should. Because the norms of what the bad parts of what capitalism have done to us over the last, and I'm a total capitalist, but like we have to correct and be more conscious about it because we can't keep going on like this. We can't have people just burned out all the time. We can't have everybody just hating their job. We can't have just people just like, you're just a cog and I can replace you in 2 seconds. It's not a good model.
And I think the dialogue is shifting. So even though we may not have evidence, I hear a change in dialogue, different influencers like Simon Sinek asking the why, talking more about fulfillment and purpose over money. Like I definitely, at least when I'm interviewing and talking to candidates and talking to customers, there's a lot of them who will say, look, I want to do this good thing in the world and I want to get a paycheck and not kill myself. How do I make all these 3 things happen? That is, I think, where we're moving towards a dialogue. I still talk to everybody once in a while who says it's all about the money. It happens every once in a while, but it's not the most common thing anymore.
No, yeah, my dad was what they called at the time a broker for Piper Jaffray, 42 years, and he passed away in 2005. But he would talk about that. He said in the old days, which to him were the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He didn't use the words, but they practiced pretty much conscious capitalism. There was much more of and he was a broker for a brokerage house. So you would think like, don't all they care about money? No, they didn't practice the capitalism. And those are the best, people refer to that as like, those were the good old days, right? Post-war, up into the early 80s, the good old days when everybody was doing good and you could have one job and support a family and all that kind of stuff. Well, it's because we were a lot more conscious about it. The CEO of Piper at the time, they only made about 4 times what their average employee did. So the world is shifting back to, I think, to a more conscious place. And it's high time. It's high time, for gosh sakes. It's high time, for heaven's sake. So the discussion today, everybody, I'm looking at like 1:56. Where does the time go? It has. We have drifted into other areas, but we got really into micro business and how you grow it and what you need to do. Some very big moments in this show, I think, have been. You look at Jenny and look at growth maybe through a different lens. Maybe don't try to borrow the lenses that are made for businesses bigger than you. Look through an actual customized small business lens. Jenny, please come back, share, post it in the Voyager place. do you have stuff that you can share that we can help people think this way?
Yeah, absolutely. I can pull up a thing or two. And
Other than this show, stick it into the Voyager community, into our, put it in there, send something to me. I'll put it
I
out
got
in the weekly.
templates and
I know.
tools out my wazoo.
Yeah. Right. Well, don't give anything for free. We want everybody to, but help people understand, because I think we're at a point where people have to sort of grasp this, look at growth through a different lens and a fresh lens. I think that's really needed right now. So please share that, and I'll get it out to the community as well. With only 2.5 minutes left, if anybody has any questions for Jenny, fire them away. Otherwise, I'm going to start promoting our next show. 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, here's Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Jenny. I just John and I did our webinar today, and I'm like, who's on today? And he said, Jenny. I'm like, oh, I got to go say hi to Jenny. I haven't seen Jenny for a long time.
I know. I owe you a call.
Well, I'm glad you're situated down in Arizona now. So
Thank you.
Are you in Phoenix?
I am in a suburb, Queen Creek, so southeast area.
Is it still hot down there?
So it's all relative. I don't
I
mind the
know.
heat. So yes, and apparently it's cooler than normal. It's been super wet this year. So I've been shocked, like flooding and rain everywhere. Mosquitoes.
Weird.
I didn't know they had mosquitoes at 75% humidity today.
What?
I know.
I thought that was a desert pie, like desert snakes
It
and
makes no
lizards and
sense.
cactus and mosquitoes. You can come home and get mosquitoes.
I know, it was a total shocker. No one told me about this part.
Crazy. So, well, thank you everybody for joining. Jenny, thank you so much. It's been wonderful and enlightening. If you're listening, please go to Voyager U, our page, and you'll find links to Jenny. Jenny's going to share all sorts of stuff on how to move a microbiz. As I say, move that micro business up and to the right. Up because you're growing, and then to the right because that's where the profitability is.
Oh, there you go. I like it.
And looking at new models for that. And I hope you come back to the show.
Awesome. I'd love to. We'll see you guys soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you, listeners. And tune in next week for another episode of Office Hours. I'm stopping the recording.